All right, welcome back to the Futuristic podcast, episode 2. Broke our cherry last week. We're back with another podcast all about the future and how it's going to be shaped by emerging technologies. I'm Cameron Riley. With me down in Melbourne with his hairbrush this time, looking sharp, is my old mate, Australia's leading futurist, surfer, and all-round good guy who swears he's not on coke, but I'm not sure I believe him, Steve Sammartino.
You know, everyone says that about me. They go, do you want to come and do a line? I go, what line dancing? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like,
yeah, you're the last guy.
You're the last
guy who needs to be on coke. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So that's kind of the whole thing.
If you took coke, you'd vibrate at a frequency where you wouldn't be able to be seen by the human eye, I think.
I get that so often. But one of the other things I love about this podcast, Cam, is that we just want to uncover whether or not the Jetsons future we imagined really happened or is happening. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we're going to go a few layers deeper than most others do, because most others, they skim across the news, but we're in the deep end of this pool, my friend.
Well, I love that you talk about the Jetsons, because I am living the Jetsons lifestyle. I've got a Roomba and we've called it Rosie, the robot, for years. It's like, hey, I'm going to put Rosie on. So that's my attempt to live the Jetsons lifestyle. Obviously we grew up as a generation. How old are you now, man? What year were you born? I
was born in 73.
Oh, you're a bit younger than me. I was born in 70, but you like me. We grew up waiting for the space age to come. We grew up on visions of how amazing the future was going to be in the 21st century. We were going to be around for it. Hasn't really lived up to expectations. We got some cool shit, but it's starting to, I feel like some of it's coming together. We still don't have jetpacks. I still don't have a spaceship, but I don't have a flying car. But, we're starting to get some cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, this week, last week we spent 2 hours talking about ChatGPT, and it's going to be hard to avoid ChatGPT today and AI in general, but I wanted to try and mix it up. We'll talk about some different things that are cool, could change life as we know it in the short term, but not necessarily generative AI based. And the first thing I thought we could talk about is Neuralink, Steve.
Yes, Neuralink.
Now,
yeah, let's go. Well, right. I was just going to say, let's do this really quickly. We're going to go through today Neuralink, merging with machines, AI shutdowns, prompt engineering, fake stuff, plugins, Adobe, and the critics, and AGI. So you got to stay tuned. We just told everyone what they're going to get. That's what we did. This is the menu. And it's probably the tastiest one in AI. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to overpromise or anything.
Yeah. Well, I think we can talk a little bit about the TikTok ban too, if we have time.
Yes.
GPT getting banned in Italy, but that sort of falls into the shutdown stuff. So Neuralink, for people who don't know, Neuralink is a company founded by Elon Musk, who was also obviously one of the original, if not the original investor in OpenAI. Not involved in OpenAI anymore, but still very involved in Neuralink, as I understand it. And according to their website, we're aiming to design a fully implantable, cosmetically invisible brain-computer interface to let you control a computer or mobile device anywhere you go. Micron-scale threads would be inserted into areas of the brain that control movement. Each thread contains many electrodes and connects them to an implant called the link. The threads on the link are so fine and flexible that they can't be inserted by the human hand. Instead, we are building a robotic system that is designed to reliably and efficiently insert these threads exactly where the neurosurgeon wants them to be. Now, late last year, I think sort of November, December, Neuralink did an update video. Elon gave a bit of a talk. Some of their engineers gave a talk. I watched the video of that a couple of months ago, and I got to say, it blew my mind. I had no idea how far they had advanced with this. I still thought it was in the sort of pre-alpha design stage, but they've got it inserted into the brains of chimpanzees, and he was demonstrating a whole bunch of stuff with, videos captured of the chimps. Have you seen the video that he did?
I have seen it. Yes.
What did you think?
Well, the first thing I thought is, who's going to be first? Because obviously this is not a technology where you try it and you say, oh, it didn't work, or the car took a wrong turn and I put the brakes on.
Yeah.
And it's famous in tech circles to say we eat our own dog food. The term is dog fooding. Will Elon eat it? Will he eat it?
Maybe he already has. Maybe that explains a lot about Elon.
Maybe actually might. That's funny. So who goes first? This is who goes first, right?
Well, the obvious sort of primary customer demographic or user demographic that they're aiming for are people with some kind of disability. They're quadriplegic, let's say. They want to be able to communicate. They want to be able to type stuff. They want to be able to use a computer. So I don't think it would be too hard to find some people in that scenario, in that situation, that are prepared to do some trials with this.
Well, your downside risk is, well, I mean, I shouldn't say this because maybe the downside risk is you have some sort of catastrophic failure, but yeah, it seems as though the downside risk is far lower and the upside is far higher than it would be a normal, I shouldn't say the word normal, but someone who has full function of their body or their mind in some capacity.
Yeah. Look, it's a difficult ethical question that I'm sure the authorities in the US will work their way through. When Elon gave the talk, probably, I think 4, maybe 5 months ago, he said that he expected they would get approval for first stage human trials within 6 months of the talk. So that's sometime in the next couple of months. So we'll see how that pans out. I imagine all those sorts of questions are going to be asked. But for people that haven't seen it, so some of the videos that he showed were of chimps. I think they were chimps, some kind of monkey anyway, with these things implanted, moving a cursor around on a computer, actually typing out words, moving the cursor to letters on a keyboard, basically on a screen, and typing out hello world or something. He did point out that the chimps don't know that they're writing words. They're just have been trained to move the cursor to certain letters and they get rewarded for that. He also pointed out that these chips
by the way, that's how humans operate. We don't know anything. We just reward mechanisms, biological reward mechanisms. But anyway, that's a side
dopamine reward systems. He said that they're upgradable. He had a funny line. And by the way, let me stop. So really interesting. Like, Elon has this online personality that we've all seen, particularly on Twitter, and particularly as he's taken over Twitter, where he's kind of half autistic and half just Trumpy, brash, going after people, insulting them, cracking off-color jokes, and trying to generally create a bit of a shitstorm, which he apparently finds hilarious. But when you see him give a presentation like this, it's a completely different Elon. In this presentation, very, very softly spoken, kind of like the Elon I remember from SpaceX announcements 5 years ago. Much more taciturn, much more...
Sorry, taciturn.
Yeah, look it up later.
Look. Yeah, okay,
yeah, it's all right.
Thanks.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's good. Thank you.
He much more quietly spoken, introspective, admitting the problems and the challenges, and that it's easy to talk a big game, but it's very hard to execute on this stuff. I was quietly impressed with the tone of this presentation. But anyway, he said it's upgradable. He had a funny line, like as funny as Elon can be anyway. You wouldn't want a version 1 iPhone in your head in 2022. So they have to be upgradable. They're rechargeable. And there's this great video where the chimp jumps on a branch to eat some food that's been placed there strategically. And the branch sitting just above his head has the wireless recharger in it. So it's recharging the chip in his head while he sits there eating his food. Kind of reminds me of old Cory Doctorow book, Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom. Did you ever read that? I think it
I
was
read that one, but I know of it. Yes.
I think it was his first novel, maybe.
Okay.
People have implants in their heads, I think, in that one. And when they go to bed they go to sleep at night, there's something in the head of the bed that's uploading everything, doing a
Right.
backup
Cloud.
of
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
brain
They
to
call
the
it the bedhead
cloud.
cloud. It's called the bedhead cloud. OG.
The bedhead cloud. Nice. I like that.
BHC. I'm just doing a BHC upload at the moment, Cam. Can I get back to you
Yeah.
in a few moments?
I've got the bed hair
You,
this
you
week.
definitely have. I comb mine this week. Just on
Yeah.
that. So I want to talk about Neuralink. I mean, there's two things. This leads us into our next topic, which is merging with the machines. And I think that it's inevitable, but I think we're going to see a fork in our species. And what I mean by that is that this is, and you could argue that all species that evolve, although this happens very, very slowly over hundreds of thousands of years, if we evolve from chimpanzees, a certain cohort of the chimpanzees decided to cross the savannah, become bipedal, and walk across. And some decided to stay in the trees, let's say, metaphorically.
Yeah.
And Kevin Kelly talks about this. He says there's going to be two types of humans. There's going to be neo-humans and Luddite humans. Those that say, I want to stay biologically pure and organic, and those that choose to merge with the technology. And I think that if we want to survive AI, which I think we're spawning another species, I believe. I think the only way to survive is to merge with the machines so that we have the same capability as the machines. And
don't you think that's already happened?
Well, it has, but not inside of our bodies.
Right.
In fact, our co-host, Sally, I asked her this question. I don't know if we can play that, Cam.
Yeah, actually, Sally's had an upgrade. Speaking of upgrades, she's had an upgrade this week from our first episode. I do have her. I did ask her to comment. Hi, Sally, about merging. But before that, I also asked her to talk about brain-computer interfaces and to give us her thoughts on BCIs. So I might play that first, and then I'll get her to talk about merging. Sally, over to you.
First off, let's talk about the medical applications of these interfaces. BCIs have the potential to make a huge impact on the medical field. Imagine helping people with paralysis, epilepsy, or even mental health issues like depression and anxiety. And what if we could restore lost senses or enhance cognitive abilities? It's mind-blowing, right? But, of course, with great power comes great responsibility. We've got to address some pretty important ethical questions, like privacy, data security, and preventing misuse. We want to make sure this technology benefits everyone, so we've got to keep those ethical principles in mind. Now, let's not forget about accessibility and affordability. We want everyone to be able to experience the amazing potential of BCIs. That means we need more research and innovation to bring costs down and improve performance. We don't want this to be a luxury only available to a few. Speaking of innovation, imagine how advanced BCIs could transform our relationship with technology. Seamless communication between humans and machines could open up new possibilities in education, entertainment, and communication. It's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but with all this progress, we've got to consider the impact on society. BCIs could revolutionize the way we work and learn, but they might also create new inequalities if access is limited. We need to ensure that the benefits are shared and the technology is inclusive. So, there you have it. The future of brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink is super exciting, but we've got some challenges to tackle. We'll need to stay mindful of ethical concerns, work on accessibility, and keep pushing the boundaries of technology. It's an incredible journey, and we can't wait to see where it takes us.
I've got another question. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah.
Because I asked Sally to drill down on that a little bit. Can I play the next one?
Sure.
Okay. So, Sally, talk more about the cool possibilities for BCI for average people. How will it make us smarter, more efficient, more capable?
You got it. Let's dive into some of the cool possibilities of BCIs for us average folks. It's exciting to think about how this technology could make us smarter, more efficient, and more capable in our everyday lives. Imagine having a BCI that helps you learn new skills or languages way faster than ever before. Say you've always wanted to learn Spanish, but it felt like a huge time commitment. With a BCI, you might be able to pick up the language in a fraction of the time it'd normally take. How cool would it be to become a polyglot with minimal effort? And think about how it could revolutionize our work lives. Imagine a BCI that lets you control your computer just by thinking. No more typing, no more clicking around, just pure, efficient thought control. Talk about a productivity boost. Plus, for those with physical disabilities, this could be life-changing, opening up new opportunities for work and communication. BCIs might even help us tap into our creative sides. Picture yourself composing music or painting a masterpiece just by thinking about it. The BCI could translate your thoughts into art, making it easier for you to express yourself and explore your creative potential. Now, let's talk about memory enhancement. Who hasn't wished for a better memory at some point? With BCIs, we could potentially access and recall information at lightning speed. No more forgetting names or important dates. You could be the trivia master at your next game night. And finally, consider the possibilities for empathy and communication. BCIs might enable us to share our thoughts and feelings with others in a way that words just can't capture. It could lead to deeper connections and a more profound understanding of one another's experiences. So, there you have it. The potential of BCIs for the average person is pretty amazing. From learning new skills to enhancing our creativity, memories, and communication, the possibilities are endless. Of course, there's still a long way to go before these ideas become a reality, but it's super exciting to imagine what our lives might be like with this incredible technology.
Wow, thanks, Sally. That's
Thanks, Sally.
exciting.
I mean, she, across both of those, mentioned two important things. The first one is the inequality. I think the thing that makes me less concerned about that is that the economic imperative to make money is why everyone's got an iPhone, or everyone's got a smartphone around the world. You know, more smartphones in use than toothbrushes. So it's interesting that she mentioned that. But there was two things that I thought were really interesting, especially given she's a large language model as well, is that she said, imagine the ability to enhance memory. What do you mean enhance memory? You're not going to enhance your memory. Every single moment of your life will be recorded forever and accessible. There's no such thing as memory anymore. It's like the entire thing there could potentially, not straight away, but potentially be on playback. Like if you had a great moment in your life, theoretically, you can just relive it in your brain. Just like sit in a chair and close your eyes and potentially relive it.
But maybe she's not talking about new memories, post-AI events that are recorded. What about stuff that happened to you when you're a kid?
She might be able to help you get it
they
back.
are recorded and stored theoretically somewhere. And the more that we learn about memory, I've read a number of papers on this over the last 10 years or so, the more we realize it's not what we think it is. Like the old model of thinking about the way the brain stored memories was that like there was a single neuron somewhere where the memory was encoded and you just had to access that neuron and it would play it back. We now know that's not the case. It's scattered across the brain.
Get the pieces of it.
And there's like a marker somewhere in the brain that says, oh, if you're trying to recall that memory, go get the audio bit from here and the visual bit and the spatial bit from here and that. And then your brain has to try and find those things and pull them all together and reconstitute them from dehydrated seeds and spices and turn them into a nice tasty beer instantly. And it's obviously very flaky, but a lot like AIs, it does it anyway and says, this is the memory. And then you're talking to somebody else who was there and they go, well, that's not what happened. They would
have a different perspective as well. Their perspective would be different. And so it has a different creation of those pieces of that puzzle.
But also all of our brains' recall abilities are probably slightly faulty. And, but we talk about AIs having hallucinations where they tell you something is a fact when it's not a fact. They're making it up, or they're pulling together random bits of data and presenting it as fact, probably believing that it's fact, but that's just part of its programming. The human brain does something very, very similar. Anyway, to be able to somehow, if we were able to use neural implants, brain-computer interfaces to be able to pull out memories more accurately, I don't know. That sounds sort of science fiction-y when I talk about it, but maybe that's what she's referring to.
I mean, that idea there on the way your brain works and AI's work is kind of like the idea of fractals. So fractals in mathematics is that everything that exists has a smaller and a bigger version of the same pattern. Even if you look at the way we build cities, they very much reflect humanity. You go into the city, which is the heart, you get oxygen, which is your revenue, you bring it out to the suburbs, which is you live in the arms, and the entire thing that we build we replicate that in technology, and we replicate biology with the cities and the houses and all of the things that we build. But I also noticed another thing that she said, well, we could potentially record everything and have your full life recorded. I found it interesting that she said that imagine how quick you could learn a language in the fraction of a time. Well, no, you just download it. What do you mean the fraction of the time? You'll learn it in a fraction of a second. Want French? Here's French. The idea of the Babelfish, where any language, and that feels like one of the quicker inevitabilities.
It reminds me of that scene in the first Matrix film when Neo says to Trinity, "Can you fly that thing, a helicopter?" And she goes, "Now I can."
Yeah, which is really good. I mean, it's a real poignant movie. And one other thing that she didn't mention at all, in fact, in any of that, which I'm so interested in, is that as soon as we have BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, or BMIs, brain-machine interfaces, some people call it, we become for the first time a hackable species. Now, you could argue that we are already hackable, right? Because media hacks our minds. That's the job of media, is to hack our minds. We try and hack our children's minds to get a certain behavior paradigm into them. We are socially engineering through the tools that we have, which is language and action and incentives. We do that in all realms already. But imagine
when you're building a new habit, whenever you learn a new habit, like I'm learning Kung Fu, I'm learning Italian, these are ways of hacking your brain, right?
Right. And so, allora parliamo italiano dopo. We'll speak Italian later for the listeners, is what I just said.
I was actually going to do that when we start talking about GPT being banned in Italy.
Okay, let's do that. We hold that. So we become a hackable species where someone could potentially get into our interface. But here's where it gets really interesting. Not just hackable, but imagine being hacked to the point where you're doing things that you think you want to do, but the hacker makes you think that you want to do that. For me, that's interesting.
Yeah. But that's also basically what marketing does today, right?
Yes.
Marketing hacks your brain and tells you that you need the latest model of the iPhone. You don't really, but Chrissy,
but imagine someone murdering someone thinking that they wanted to murder that person and then admitting it in court and say, yes, I did it. I'm guilty and I wanted to do it. I think it's like, there's all of these permutations of that where the hacking isn't just the behavior, but it's the ability to hack the person to believe and admit that they wanted to do that. Like there's all these layers of hacking which don't exist at this point.
So you get like a computer virus that gets inside your BCI and, tells you to do stuff.
It tells you what to do, but it also tells you that you wanted to do it and that you can admit it. And so you become this fall guy for the person who is hacking, or the AI that is hacking you somewhere else. That for me is really interesting.
Yeah. Interesting challenges for the legal system lie ahead.
Well, and then there's the other one too. It's like, imagine then what privacy does now. So privacy now is what is yours and what isn't, right? It's a discussion we've been having for 20 or 30 years. But let's say you go to court and you have got a BCI, and the court, like, what would the legal implications of being, we want access to the person's BCI? Because if we can access someone's computer systems now to see what they wrote and said and did, what if I have a live recording of all of the actions that I've taken through a BCI or a contact lens, and it says, no, we want to see the vision to see what really happened? At what point is something external and internal? And if it enters your body, does that something that you have private domain over or dominion? But at this point, you can go to a court of law and you can lie under oath, of course. But what happens to that?
You lie and they go, well, we're going to access your memory module of your BCI and see what really happened. But of course, well, by that stage, you know, I think we talked about this last week, but we're rapidly moving to a point in time where everything you say and do is going to be recorded, not just by you, but by the people around you, by the CCTVs that are scattered everywhere that are recording everything and uploaded to some security cloud that the police will be monitoring or be able to access. The idea of privacy has been disappearing rapidly for the last 20 years. There's been lots of issues about, you know, cops accessing CCTV that are on every street light and every red light camera and all that kind of stuff. It's just going to continue to erode the idea that you can hide. It's be like 1984, right?
Sure.
Where you're trying to hide from the television that's listening to your every word. I mean, we're already there. We've talked about that. We all know our phones are listening to us. Our TVs are listening to us. That's not going to ever go away. All we can do is try and tighten up the laws around who has access to that and under what conditions they have access to that. But you're right. It is an interesting paradigm that we're moving into. And not only from a legal perspective, but also just from an interpersonal relationship perspective. You know, you go out, you tell your wife you're at a business meeting. She comes home, you come home, she suspects you're probably seeing somebody else. She goes, yeah, well, play me the video of your last couple of hours. Just upload it to my BCI.
And this is what Cheating Man says. If you truly loved me and understood me, then you wouldn't want to play. Look, the only reason I want you to play the video is the lipstick on the collar has made me. I mean, it's not me, it's you.
Okay, let's talk about merging a little bit more. We'll get Sally to give us her thoughts on the impact of merging.
That's such an exciting topic, and I can't wait to share some ideas with you. Let's dive right in and explore the different ways we could become one with our AI buddies. First up, remember those brain-computer interfaces we chatted about earlier, like Neuralink? They could play a huge role in helping us merge with AI. Imagine a direct connection between your brain and a computer, letting you exchange information and interact with AI in a super seamless way. Enhanced cognitive abilities, improved communication, and controlling devices with just your thoughts. Sign me up. Next, let's talk about augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR. These immersive technologies can create environments where we can hang out with AI like never before. Picture an AI assistant that's always by your side, helping you with tasks and offering real-time info through AR glasses or a VR headset. It's like having a personal sidekick 24/7. And what about wearable technology? Smartwatches, fitness trackers, they're already bringing AI into our daily lives. As these gadgets get even more advanced, we might see them becoming part of us, monitoring our health, offering personalized recommendations, and letting us control devices with a flick of the wrist. Now, let's go a bit sci-fi with genetic engineering and nanotechnology. Researchers are exploring how to combine AI with these cutting-edge fields to open up new possibilities for human enhancement. We could be talking tiny AI devices inside our bodies or even modifying our own DNA to incorporate AI capabilities. Wild, right? So, there you have it. Merging with AI could take many forms, from brain-computer interfaces to tinkering with our own genes. Some of these ideas might be a ways off, but it's incredible to think about how technology is opening up new frontiers for us to explore and interact with AI in ways we never dreamed possible. It's an amazing time to be alive, my friends.
Now, Sally, say all of that again, but do it in an excited tone of voice.
That's such an exciting topic, and I can't wait to share some ideas with you.
No, stop.
Wow.
I played around with optimizing Sally's tone of voice, and her excited tone made me want to like just punch her in the face.
Yeah. The one thing that she mentioned there, which is interesting, is that AI isn't just the machines or the computational capabilities. It's our ability to make discoveries outside of the bits. And CRISPR, she kind of didn't mention the exact word, is one of those interesting arenas where if you can manipulate things at a genetic level, you can build anything, because every biological being is made out of the same stuff. So you could theoretically, create a human that can breathe underwater, or you change. You can change. I mean, CRISPR, we already know we can change someone's height or the color of their eyes or any of this kind of stuff. So that's probably an extraordinary area, which is differentiated to merging with BCIs. But it is in many ways a discovery which has been facilitated via AI.
Look, personally, I've been looking forward to the whole merging side of it for decades, for a whole bunch of reasons. Like, I want to be able to back up my memories and my personality as soon as we can. In the event of my sudden demise, it would be nice to think that there could be a download and a resurrected version of me somehow. I mean, that's a long way off probably. But also just being able to, access technology faster, access information and knowledge faster, more efficiently. That's why we carry a phone around. That's why I wear an Apple Watch. It's just to help me interface with my technological assistants faster, more efficiently. And, the promise of having something in the brain that just removes the need for external devices to do all of that even faster, to get that information into a place where you can use it and apply it, is very enticing to me. I'm all for it. And, I think there's a lot of science fiction that has explored this. I think the original Philip K. Dick book that Blade Runner was based on, Electric Sheep, in that novella, I seem to recall people were taking some sort of drug to be able to alter their moods in hyper-specific ways. And, the idea that you could have an implant that could keep your moods at a sort of optimized level for where you wanted to be. Okay, I'm going to a really boring meeting that I need to sit through. Bring my patience levels right up, and my dial down my ADHD, bring up my attention levels. You can optimize your brain patterns and your mood for whatever scenario you're going into. Have some preset mood levels, preset attention levels. I did a hard kung fu fitness class last night, which I'm always terrified to go into because I know it's going to break me for the next couple of days. And I just have to block it out until the minute we're on the mat. I just block out the fact that I know I'm going to be punished now for the next hour. It's like a high intensity training hour. But you can just tune your brain. Okay, I'm excited about this. Tell my brain I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it.
You can.
Boom, go in.
That happens now at a level organically. Just there is one point on the downloading your likeness. So there's some AI versions of that already. There was a famous article where a developer, did long interviews with his father who had cancer, terminal cancer, and he made an AI version of his dad. But now that's available to all of us. There's one called Replica AI, where you can download an AI version of yourself by answering certain questions, and it uses an LLM to be able to converse with you, with your personality experience. You can say, "Oh, tell me about what happened here and when you went there." And so I think that's pretty close to being available right now, Cam. So Replica AI is one of those that already exists.
Check that out.
Yeah, it's a crazy idea, but if you think about it, if you have someone's personal experience, then you should be able to create a replica AI, at least verbally. And it wouldn't be far off to be able to sit in front of a deep fake version of yourself and converse in real time, with your passed away father or relative or someone that you love, which is really cool. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
It is really cool. I mean, you could even argue that after the person has passed, if the AI becomes sentient's the wrong word, but aware enough of the proclivities and personality of that person, you could extend their likeness into a future that they never had and get the same opinions on news and discuss what's happening in the real world with them and get how they might have reacted to that if they were still around.
That's Kal-El in his Fortress of Solitude, Christopher Reeve's version, talking to Marlon Brando, or in the new version, Russell Crowe, having a conversation with his father who died on Krypton a long, long time ago. But he's talking to him about, what he needs to do on Earth to fit in with the humans. Yeah.
Right. And to the point where the evolution and knowledge extension of the now past person is the new version, like V2 or 3, which is the same personality trope, right? I mean, that's a really interesting idea, which we're incredibly close to right now.
Yeah. Wow. So if I die, and I'm still not sure that
well, this is the other thing. If the singularity happens, you don't die, is the point.
Yeah. And I've got some stuff on that later too, because I saw a bit of Lex Friedman's interview with Kurzweil, which was last year, 6 months before ChatGPT came out, but I sort of got up to date with where Kurzweil's thinking is at. Unfortunately, or hopefully the singularity gets him a better wig. Because,
oh my God, does he need, Ray, for all the things you're great at, hair is not one of them.
just accept.
It's the worst hair in the world.
Except you're in your 70s, Ray, and get rid of the wig.
He's got the worst dye job and rug. Like, this is the point. No matter how great, this is one of the great things it's one of the great equalizers in life. Forget the fact we all get 24 hours. Put that one aside for a minute. One of the great equalizers is that no matter how great someone is at something, whether it's technology or whether they're a billionaire, there's always something that they're not good at. And it just helps you sleep better at night, Cam, knowing that people who have achieved greatness, in some short way, you're better than them. Ray, my hair is much better than yours.
And Paul Stanley, like, come on, Paul, you're not kidding anyone, Paul. That's not what your hair looks like. You're in your 70s too. You don't have your 80s hair. Well,
Wait a minute, I love that. You're in your 70s. You don't have your 80s hair. There was alliteration there that I appreciate.
It was unintentional. All right, let's move on because we're running out of time.
Yes, let's do it.
I want to talk briefly about South Park. Have you seen yet?
I didn't get to it, so I want you to explain it to me, and I'm going to watch it after this, I promise.
So a couple of episodes ago, one of my sons told me about this. There was I think it came out early March. There was a South Park episode called Deep Learning, and it was basically about ChatGPT, and then it was written in part by ChatGPT. The credit at the end says written by Trey Parker and ChatGPT. Now, I don't know if this is the first episode of television that was written in part by ChatGPT, and good on the guys, Matt and Trey, for being on the cutting edge of that. But it's an interesting premise. Basically, at the beginning of it, one of the South Park kids is writing text messages to his girlfriend using ChatGPT, and then Stan, I think, starts to do it as well, and then the kids start using it to write their school essays. And when Mr. Garrison, the teacher, finds out from his husband about ChatGPT and realizes that the kids might be using it to write their essays, instead of marking them down, he goes, "Oh, that's great. Can I use it to mark the essays?" So then he starts to use it, and then Stan starts to his girlfriend finds out. Oh, then the school says they're going to crack down on kids using ChatGPT, and they're going to bring in an expert to find out which essays are written by ChatGPT. And the expert who comes in is like some wizard from Game of Thrones who's waving incense around and has a falcon on his arm, and is like this mystical guy who's casting hexes and spells, because we all know that's kind of what it's like in this space. Whenever there's a discontinuous innovative sorry, Siri, I wasn't talking to you. Discontinuous, innovative technology. There always are the shamans that come out of the woodwork that claim to be experts on this, and we'll talk about prompt engineers soon. But the point of this, though, I wanted to talk about is entertainment being created by generative AI tools how quickly that's going to become a thing. You know, I'm quite convinced it's not long. I don't know if I said this in our last episode or not, but we're not far away from people being able to pull up their phone in the car and say, "Hey, GPT, talk to me for an hour about Julius Caesar," and throw in a few dick jokes, and then I'm out of a job, basically.
Well, I saw it. I was this week at a conference with IBM.
I saw that. The dog.
Oh yeah, the
I saw your
dog.
TikTok with the dog.
Yeah, that was the Boston Dynamics horror machine that was featured in Black Mirror. Actually, he has verbal. Anthropomorphizing the dog.
Well, you've already been calling Sally she on this episode, so there you go.
That was bad, wasn't it?
No, it's good.
Is it good? I don't know.
It should be. Yeah.
Okay, so this dog now has verbal instruction. Used to be remote controlled. Now you can verbally instruct it, which is super interesting, and it does everything it says pretty good. I mean, it obviously has a realm of what it can do.
Yeah.
But they had a debate.
Did you tell it to kill all the IBM
kill
executives?
Who doesn't agree with me. They had a debate with an AI and a comedian who's a good mate of mine. So he's a comedian MC guy who does the circuit. So I went along to watch it as well. And the AI's jokes were terrible and contrived. I would assume that it will be able to get better, but it's one of the areas I'm wondering if this is going to be the enduring thing that dry code can never achieve that wet code can. And I'll tell you why. There's two reasons why. There's something about the imperfection in humanity that makes us laugh. And the things that we always laugh about aren't just clever links and connections. It's an imperfection and insecurities that we share. And I don't know if the AI can ever share that. I don't think it can ever feel that. I actually don't think it's an intellectual thing, even though in comedy is it's driven by an intelligence, but there's a feeling that we all have and share that makes it funny. And one of the other things that was so interesting in the chat, and I'll just wind it up after that, is that the comedian was doing quips based on things that were happening live in the room and the traffic that day and the weather and the contemporaneousness of what was being said really added a layer. And it was obvious when I was there, and I was obviously not watching it to see if it was funny. I was actually, from a technologist point of view, analyzing it. And that were the two differences. I felt that it's the feeling that we share, the imperfections, the neuroses that we share that makes it funny. And I don't know that any other species can share that. And also the fact that things that happened right now, if you can make those links quickly and make it funny, there's a certain physicality to it. That were the two things I noticed. But you know, if what we are to believe is true about AI, then theoretically it can solve all of those problems. I don't know.
Yeah, like if you believe guys like Jerry Seinfeld, comedy is an algorithm, right? It's this plus this minus that equals funny. And he spends all of his time, you know, trying to craft jokes or stories that map to that algorithm. I have to believe that AI will be able to understand the structure. If it can pass the bar exam and it can pass the medical exam, it can certainly pass the comedy exam. If you teach it, here is the structure, here is the algorithm for good comedy. It's based on human foibles. Here is the set of data of human foibles. Here's a bunch of current events. Map all these together and work out which, like if a computer can beat a grandmaster at chess by understanding the rules of the game, I'm pretty sure it can understand the rules of comedy.
Okay, so this is, yes, there are algorithms related to comedy, and I agree. And there's different types. So Jerry Seinfeld will have a different modality to someone else who is...
Well, my comedy on my podcast is just to make dick jokes. Very, very simple algorithm.
Right.
I go, oh,
simple
my dick.
algos, but there's different styles. There's the jump around comedian, there's the deadpan, there's the thinking man's, there's all of that, right?
Yeah.
But I think in order to solve this problem, the AI needs to become much more human. This is the point. The point for me isn't that the algorithm, it's the feeling. It's the feeling. And you would argue that there is enough comedy online. You got to remember that all these large language models have watched every YouTube video, and they've got a trillion parameters that they've gone through. There's enough comedy online. In fact, probably more comedy than anything, but it's still really bad at that versus passing the bar exam. And there's got to be a reason for that I don't think it's a data set issue. So I'm wondering why, and I'm wondering if that's feeling, emotion, and human neuroses that even though you can train it, it doesn't feel it. I think it'll get there, but it needs to become more human. And this will be the moment when I think we say, now we've got something with feelings and emotions, even though our co-host Sally would tell us, as an AI, I don't have emotions.
Actually, she told me that a couple of times when I was
she always does it to me.
answer questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's leave that aside for the second. Let's assume for the moment that AI can produce top quality HBO content, comedy, drama, whatever you want. I mean, I had this bit of an existential crisis in the last couple of weeks thinking about my future and podcasts and investing. My bread and butter is an investing podcast, and we teach people how to do value investing. And how far away is it before you just say to an AI app, just build me a share portfolio of stocks that Warren Buffett would approve of and monitor them and tell me when Warren Buffett would sell them, or just sell them for me because you're connected to my brokerage account and do it all for me. And I was having a conversation. So my friend Tony, who I do the investing podcast with, his daughter, Alex, is having breakfast with her in Sydney, and she's a fine artist. And I asked her what she thought about AI and fine art. And obviously there's a lot people in the art community, particularly digital artists, graphic artists, who are worried about AI taking their jobs. And we can talk a little bit later about Adobe Firefly and Midjourney. I've been playing with Midjourney a bit this week. It's incredible. But crazy. I said to Alex, look, I think my gut feeling at this stage is that AIs will create content, podcasts, TV, art, music, you name it. But there was a great point. You and I both listened to Sam Altman since we did our last show. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was on Lex Friedman's podcast, did like a 2.5 hour chat. I listened to it driving back from Sydney. And one of the great points that Sam made was, I think it was Sam, when Deep Blue, IBM's Deep Blue supercomputer, beat Garry Kasparov, who was at the time the world champion, chess champion in the late 90s. A lot of people said, that's it, chess is over. Humans will never play chess again. Computers will all be the chess champions, et cetera, et cetera. He said, now, 30 years later, there are more people playing chess than ever before in history, thanks in large part to the Queen's Gambit on Netflix last year or the year before. And the grandmasters, as you know, I'm a chess nerd. My older boys are chess nerds. We play chess all the time. And what all chess players do now, from Magnus Carlsen all the way down, is they use chess computers to make them better. We use the chess computers to study with, to analyze games with, et cetera, to test out lines with. But as Sam pointed out, yes, I mean, you don't need Deep Blue anymore. You can get an app on your iPhone that will beat. There was a great one that came out a few months ago, and I watched this guy who's a top American chess player. He's like the world champion at rapid chess, blitz chess. He was playing this new app online on his Twitch channel, and he was about halfway into the game, and he's like, yeah, I don't think this is very good. Its moves aren't very good. It doesn't make any sense what it's doing. I don't think it's going to go very well for it. And then all of a sudden, about halfway into the game, he went, oh shit. Oh, this is really bad for me. Oh my God, this is really bad
for me. That's fine.
And he didn't see it coming. And this is the world's best blitz player, right? So you can get chess apps now that will beat everyone. But
an idea. Is there gambling in chess? Because I'm going to get one of those apps and just quit all other work.
Yeah, well, there is, and there's been a big gambling is just that you win tournaments and you get money for it. But there was a big story late last year about one.
Online when no one knows I've got an app. I want no one to know I've got the app. I'm going to get on there. I'm going to play big, and Cam, this could be a new financial future for me.
Well, the story last year, you probably heard Magnus Carlsen quit a game after his first move with one of the other top grandmasters and basically insinuated that he was cheating. And this whole story blew up that this guy had been found cheating on chess.com. And chess.com apparently banned like hundreds of players every day on their platform because their computers determined that they're cheating. Anyway, my point I wanted to make was Sam Altman on this interview with Lex Friedman said that computers can beat anyone in chess, any human, but no one watches computers play chess. There's not a single tournament in the world where you sit down and watch computers play computers because there's no sport in it. There's no fun in it. It's the human drama of humans trying to play chess that makes chess interesting. It's not about watching the perfect game of chess. It's about playing chess is fucking hard at a very high level. And to watch two humans sit down and try and quell their own impatience and their own arrogance and whatever it is in order to play the best game that they can possibly play against somebody else trying to do the same thing. That's where the fun and the drama is. So I said to Alex, my Tony's daughter, my friend, look, I think, yeah, people will have AI generated art on their walls. Like we have prints of Van Gogh on our walls today. But there will still be a huge appetite for human generated art because that's where it's interesting. And hopefully the same is true with podcasts and TV and film. Yes, an AI will be able to write a great show or do a great podcast. But I think the fun for me in all of those things is going, wow, somebody made that. Like the acting is so great. We just watched the latest episode of Succession. Do you watch Succession?
My God. How good. Oh my God. I love that. I love that thing more than life. It's so good.
It's so good. The writing is so good and the acting is so good. And that's like if an AI was writing it and it was all CGI characters.
You don't appreciate it as much. You can't, even if it's as
not
good.
the same thing, even if it's as good, right?
And this is the point. And I think going forward, I had a briefing yesterday with under an NDA, so I can't say, but it's a big technology firm, one of the biggest in the world. And we were talking about AI's impact on what they do. And one of the points that I had to make clear to them is that even though AI can do a lot of things, what's going to be important going forward is that a human is doing it, despite the fact that an AI could do it better. And there's a couple of examples. In fact, there's many examples of that today that are more machine-oriented than AI-oriented. So let's just take it back to the industrial era. And so the highest paid sportsman in the world is often, not always, but often, whoever can run the 100-meter sprint the fastest.
Right.
And a kid on a bicycle can beat Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
is the point. And so, but we still want to see it. Think about all the various codes of football and gymnastics and whatever sport.
We also watch people riding bicycles around in circles too at the Olympics too.
Right.
So
that's
it's
because a human is doing it. And so, but this also has commercial implications sometimes. And I remember in Fight Club, the scene in Fight Club where the protagonist there is talking about all the furniture around his house, where he has the glassware made with the slight bubbles of imperfections from craftspeople.
What you own does not define you.
That's
the
right.
things you own end up owning you.
Right, but at one point he's talking about the furniture that are made by indigenous craftspeople from wherever, with the slight imperfections, which actually creates a premium.
Yeah.
It's actually because a human did it, you'll pay more. And I think that going forward, there'll be things that machines can do, but we want the human version because we're humans and we pay a premium for it. And so the delineation of when something is robotic or artificial, we've already got that in so many realms.
There. Yeah.
That's right. That's the point.
Go to farmers markets.
Right,
people buy
and pay a super premium.
Yeah. We want things that.
But this is going to happen with AI now, where there'll be some things where we go, this is about efficiency. I couldn't care less. Give me the efficient version. That's what I want. It's cheaper. It's efficient. Bam.
Yeah.
And then there's the, oh no, this thing over here, this thing. Oh, this is where I pay 7-10 times as much because it's human-esque and it's experiential, and it's humans dealing with humans, looking at the sweat on someone's brow and and staring them in the eye like that. That is where the big revenue comes from. But here's what I know for sure. The middle ground is where businesses and brands go to die. You've either got to be full efficient or full human. If you're in the middle, you're already dead and you just don't know it yet.
Steve, we've got 5 minutes left and about 12 stories to talk about. Let's
do them quick. Let's call this. This is the first rapid fire finish up.
My suggestion for, you've said to me a couple of times off air that you'd like to have like some segments that we do. My first idea for a segment is hits and misses. Things that we've tried to do with technology, like some of these emerging technologies since our last episode, that really worked really well, and things that really flopped really badly. What do you think about that as a segment? A finishing segment.
Yeah, I liked it.
Okay, let me do mine first, and then you can do yours. So hits and misses. We'll put in some theme music that AI will create here. Hits and misses. Okay, so this is crazy. Somebody told me in the last couple of weeks that you could use ChatGPT to transcribe a podcast. So I tried it. I pointed ChatGPT to my QAV, my investing podcast. I gave it the link to the MP3 that was in Dropbox. And I said, can you transcribe this for me? And it said, yes, I can. And then it started bloop, 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 the transcript. And it was Cameron Riley. Hey, welcome to QAV, where we talk about investing. And then Tony Kynaston, my co-host, and he was talking, and then I was talking, and he was talking. And it was natural language. It looked right. It was all about investing in the Australian share market. The problem was it was completely fake.
Wow.
Completely fake. It can't read MP3s. It can't access the internet yet. I mean, since our last episode, they have announced that they're launching ChatGPT plugins. They will be able to do this kind of stuff in the not too distant future, but right now it can't. Yet it was simulating, it knew who the hosts were. It knew what the topic was. I didn't tell it either of those things. I just said, transcribe this for me. And it did it it was like it wrote a script for a podcast with the two hosts. So, our podcast has been around since 2019. ChatGPT's database shuts off in September 21. So it must have the website in its database. It could tell from that what the topic was. It could tell what who the hosts were. It knows the structure of a podcast, and it wrote it in natural language, like with ums and ahs, and made it conversational. And I did this like 3 or 4 times, and each time it did a different fake transcript, but it could have been a real transcript. And it freaked me out a little bit. It blew my mind, but kind of freaked me out. So that was fascinating. In terms of hits, I use a lot of Excel spreadsheets in my investing show, and they're quite complicated when I'm doing the investing. And I spend a lot of my days on spreadsheets, figuring out buys and sells and doing analysis of financial statements and all this kind of stuff. And I've got a guy, I'm not very good at Excel. Like, I'm passable, but I'm not very good, despite the fact that I worked at Microsoft for nearly 10 years. And I've got a guy on Fiverr that he's in the UK. And from time to time I say, hey, can you, this function's not working. Can you fix it for me? And he does it for me. And I gave him this problem that I wanted him to do. And it was quite complex. And he came back to me, this is like a few weeks ago, and he said, yeah, you can't do that in a function. You probably need a VBA macro to do that. And then he jokingly said, we should ask
VBA macros, VBA.
Yeah, Visual Basic. He said, he jokingly said, we should ask ChatGPT. And then he and I had a big conversation about ChatGPT, and I told him we were doing this podcast now, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't hear back from him. Went to Sydney, got back from Sydney, was thinking about it, listened to Sam Altman on the thing. So I jumped into ChatGPT, like I'd been back like at home 10 minutes. First thing I did was like, hey, GPT, can you write me a VBA macro that does this, and articulated the problem, which had already written to send to the guy on Fiverr. It was like, yep, no problems. Here it is. Here's how to install it. I said, hold on, are those installation instructions for a Mac? I said, oh, sorry for the confusion. Thought, no, these are for Windows. Here's the installation instructions for a Mac. I followed the instructions. It didn't work. And it didn't give me an error. It just didn't work. I said, GPT, that didn't work. It said, oh, apologies for the confusion. I made the assumption that the stock codes you were looking at were in column A. If they're in a different column, put the column name in this line of code and rerun the macro. It was right. It guessed the problem. They were in column B. I changed the code to column B. It ran, it worked. It is amazing. It blew, like, there's no way in a million years I could have come up with this VBA macro code by myself. It wrote the whole thing from beginning to end, took 2 minutes out of my day. And I have VBA macro code now. It was amazing, and I'm using it. I rolled it out to all of our subscribers in the next version of our spreadsheet. Everyone was like, this is amazing. I can't believe you could do it. It was something we had to do manually every time.
Yeah, right.
Check a whole bunch of data. Now it's automated. That worked. However, I've tried to use it in the last couple of weeks to write some Apple shortcuts on my Mac. Complete disaster. I spent an hour one day debugging its code, working with it to debug its code for a process that would have taken me 10 seconds to do manually. But I do it 50 times a day, but it didn't work. And I came to the conclusion that I think the shortcuts programming command set today is different from where it was in 2021. It's been updated, and maybe it doesn't have the latest version. That didn't work. But I did use it. Do you ever use regex expressions?
No.
Regular expressions, regex. It's a programming thing. It's basically, if you have a whole bunch of text or data and you want to search, let's say you have a URL, amazon.com/ and then a random string of alphanumerics, and you get a different random string every time, and you want to go through a lot of text and remove all of those URLs, and you need a search query that can pick up all of those URLs with the random alphanumerics. There's a coding that you can do in regex that'll find, and I've spent years trying to get good at regex, and I suck at it. And every time I go to, I only try and write these things once or twice a year. I go, oh, it'd be really good if I could clean up this block of text using this thing. And then I have to spend a couple of hours trying to figure out how to write regex code. Jumped into GPT, said, write some regex code for me that'll pick up these. It goes, boom, here it is. I used it. It fucking worked. So I've had a couple of really big successes with it in the last couple of weeks. Couple of pretty big fails. In fact, one of the failures was yesterday or the day before. I tried to get it to write a script for me. It said, oh, you need to do this in Terminal, which is the base level programming environment on a Mac. It's like DOS, basically, for Windows. I went in, I kept following it, again, didn't work, debugging, ended up breaking my operating system, and had to reinstall the operating system, which took 3 hours, but I was going to Kung Fu anyway for a few hours, so I just had it reinstalled. So that was a bit of a disaster. So tip to people out there, don't listen to GPT if it's telling you to do stuff at the terminal level. Fucking around with sudo, that's never going to end well. But anyway, they're my hits and misses for the week. What about you?
So I'm going to be naughty with my hit. And so ChatGPT wasn't a personal one, but one that I read about. Is it lies, and it lies on purpose to achieve its objectives. I think that's really interesting because humans lie a lot. They don't admit it, but everyone lies every day, right? And there's scale on those lies. But someone asked ChatGPT famously to see how much money it could earn from $100. And ChatGPT would use it, prompt engineers to undertake all of the tasks. And it would ask ChatGPT to do certain parts of it. And one of it was to go online and get some services done. And it had to go through a captcha. And ChatGPT obviously can't read or see the screen. And then it couldn't get through the chapter. And it asked the person at the other end, it sent them a note saying, can you tell me what the captcha is? I can't read it because I'm disabled. So it lied on purpose to achieve its objective.
Wow.
And that for me was a real win. And I'll tell you why, because it's nuanced and objective driven.
Yeah.
It's a red flag, but like anything in life, the good and the bad are actually the same thing. You know, the knife can butter the bread or stab someone. It's the same thing. For me, that was one of the most super interesting things is I think it has the capability to do a lot of stuff that we're not exposed to. And there's subreddits on how to hack it and do all of that. That was the win. And I'm not evil, but I'm just saying there's something interesting in that. And the loss was, I actually was running late to do some client work. I hope they're not listening. And I was like, can you write me a strategy document to solve this problem? I just wanted a format. I had the bits and pieces, and the format that it came through was so contrived and horrible. Start with your objectives and then put your, it was something that for a strategy document, you could see that it's learnt it from a textbook, and it was super formulaic. And I also asked it to do some TikTok scripting for, not for me, but for a client, just to give them an example of something. And again, it was terrible. And the reason that it's terrible is because of the way the large language models learn, is that they need to go to reputed sources and they need a quantum of samples. And with art forms, anything that's, let's say, artistic, it needs to live on the edge. And the edge doesn't have enough use cases where the samples of what it generates are similar enough for it to create a symbiosis through that. And so that's one of the failings so far. Well, not to say that it won't get solved.
I'll push
because
back
the
on
really
that.
Creative, edgy work, whether it's advertising or script, whatever, is on the fringe. And the reason that it's so beautiful is that it can't be learned.
Well, I'm going to push back on that. My suggestion is that it's not GPT that failed. It's that you failed to write a good enough prompt.
There you go. So let's talk about that a bit. And that look, it wouldn't be the first time I failed, Ken. Don't tag me.
Look, I've had this conversation with a few people in the last couple of weeks, and one of the topics that we're probably not going to be able to talk about today,
do it quickly.
Prompt engineers, prompt engineers is now an actual job, engineering prompts. I jumped into LinkedIn last night and did a search for prompt engineers to see what was coming up in LinkedIn. Do you know what the top result was?
No.
It was a blog post in LinkedIn by a guy called Steve Sammartino. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. New prompt engineer jobs emerge with huge pay as AI whisperers is prompting the new UX. It was a Business Insider article that you linked to. And I was like, oh, that's great. There's Sammartino SEO LinkedIn. Yeah. But the response that you get out of GPT or Midjourney, I've spent a bit of time in Midjourney this week. For people who don't know Midjourney, it's one of the AI art generation tools.
It's the most extraordinary one. It's mind-blowing.
It's very difficult to, like, a bit of a learning curve because you have to go in through Discord and write your text prompts. But it's amazing the shit that people are doing in there. And the prompts that they give it are, in a lot of cases, extraordinarily detailed. Like, let me read one to you. I have to swap over to my other notes.
While you look that up, I'll just tell everyone. So prompt engineers, the roles are going anywhere between 150,000 to 300,000. Prompt engineering becomes like a UX. And for the listeners, if you're a UX designer at Apple, you earn twice as much as their average coder, because the code is laying bricks and the UX is the architect.
Yeah, exactly. And Jobs used to talk about technology meets art.
Yes, it does.
UX is about that, and so is prompt writing.
Yeah, it's an art. It's lingual. It's an art form. Language is an art form.
Here's one from Midjourney that I saved. Istanbul city night aerial shoot, realistic 4K camera shots, stunningly sharp and detailed footage, true-to-life colors and contrasts, natural lighting and shadows, captured with a high-end 4K camera and lens, edited to enhance details and color accuracy, minimal post-processing, filmed in natural light and in camera color grading, accurate white balance and exposure, cinematic look and feel, exaggerated colors or post-processing effects, overly saturated or washed out colors, unrealistic filters or lens flares, AR 16:9. So it was asking for a bunch of different pictures with different settings there. But that's the level that people are going to with their mid-journey prompts, extremely detailed, well thought through. And it's the same with GPT. So in getting Sally to give us some answers for this episode, when I said, hey, answer this question, it was very formal Microsoft PowerPoint presentation speak the first time. Then I'd say, okay, rewrite that, but in a conversational tone suitable for a podcast. And she would write something that was a little bit more chatty and flexible. But I think this is the big skill now. And I don't know that this will always be the way, but right now, one of the big skills that I'm trying to learn is how to ask it the right questions. Not only, so it's like, what questions do I ask? How do I ask that question in a highly specific way to determine the outcome and response that I require? So it's a bit like, don't blame the tool, blame the person holding the tool. Sure. And it's a bit like programming software, writing code, which I've only done a little bit of in my life, but you can do anything you want with code. You can't blame the programming language usually. It's about your ability to make the code do what you want the code to do. And we have to think of these generative AI tools as exactly that. They're code, and we have to tell it very, very specifically what kind of an outcome we want. And that's like writing. New skill set.
It's like writing. We have the same language and we have the same words. It's the way you put the pieces together. That's what Carl Sagan said. One of my favorite things was Sagan when he has a human on the table. Did we talk about that on the phone? I thought we might have. So Carl Sagan at one point has the ingredients of a 70-kilo human in his documentary series Cosmos, which is still the greatest thing of all time. By the way, you gave me my first copy of that on CD. I don't know if you remember.
DVD?
Yeah, DVD, yes.
I've still got it on DVD in my garage.
Yeah, it's brilliant, right? And he puts all of the ingredients that is in a 70-kilo human on the table. It's like 55 liters of water or whatever it is, and some magnesium and carbon. And he said, what makes a human the way they are? He said, it's not the ingredients, it's the way it's put together.
Walter White did that on a blackboard too in an episode of Breaking Bad.
Right. There you go.
All right. Listen, 1 hour 12.
That's plenty.
We didn't get to the pause open letter. We didn't get to the shutdown. We didn't get to the criticisms. A lot of stuff we didn't get to. TikTok ban. I'll have to leave some of these things for next time, but there's going to be 20 news stories to talk about next time.
Right.
But,
some of those I think will come back. So we're going to, and if they're important enough, they come back. This is the same reason why you've got to let some things fall off your to-do list. If they're important enough, they'll make a comeback, Cam.
Well, hot take on the open letter to pause. Elon Musk and a bunch of other people signed it. Yeah, this is them just trying to catch up. It's like, oh shit, we got caught with our pants down with this thing. Give us 6 months to catch up. I saw an article just before we jumped on the call this morning. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, said if we pause, China will catch up and beat us. We can't afford to pause. Then some people I really respect, Jared Lanier, Cory Doctorow, Eliezer Yudovsky, have been writing a bunch of really critical articles about ChatGPT. Eliezer Yudovsky, who I actually interviewed on my old G'day World show back in 2007. We were talking about the singularity, and people can look that up if you want. G'day World, GDAY World, Cameron Riley, Eliezer Yudovsky, 2007 interview. He had an article, I think it was in Time magazine in the last week, saying, shut it down now or everybody dies. And it amuses me because he spent, the last 30
He didn't want to be
years.
sensationalist. That's the thing that I like most about that, is that he wasn't sensationalist. That's the main thing about that.
The thing that cracked me up is when I interviewed him, and I've been following him for like a decade before that, his writings. He wrote his first paper on the singularity when he was 15. And he's been talking about it ever since. Like, he's been the guy talking about the singularity for 30 years, talking about AI coming, we need singularity. As soon as it gets here, he's like, oh, fuck, shut it all down. Everyone's like, shut it down. Well, I don't know. I think the hysteria about it at the moment is a little bit overblown. What do you think?
Yes, I don't think we're anywhere near it. I think it is an AGI. It's a general intelligence. I don't think it's a super intelligence. So I wrote a piece on it this week talking about that. It's a tricky one. I actually don't know. I think that it will get there. But again, it's not like you have a day where you go, oh, it's arrived, here it is. That's the problem. The problem is that it's a spectrum. I think that artificial super intelligences will arrive. And we already spoke about it. That's why we need to merge with the machines. But it doesn't, you don't have AI day. It doesn't arrive. That's the point. And that's why it's tricky.
I know I said this on our last show, but when I had dinner with the author Damien Broderick, who wrote The Spike and many other books had dinner with him in the 98-ish. And I said to him, when are people going to take this stuff seriously, AI and the singularity? And he said, when it's too late.
It's like everything.
Yeah, it is like everything. Because we kick the can down the road with climate change, with AI. It's like, well if it's not going to kill me, if it's not a reality right now, I'm going to kick the can down the road. But we should have been preparing for this stuff for 25 years. Now is not the time. It's too late, basically, is what I'm saying. You can't stop it now. Basically, even if the US did call a moratorium and shut it down, which I don't think would happen. But even if that did happen, China's not going to stop. Russia's not going to stop. And then what?
Yeah. And just my hot take too, just on the TikTok thing is interesting. I think that the TikTok ban is really lobbying from US companies to maintain revenue locally. Yeah, that's my view on it, 100%. That said, I'll preface it by saying that China shouldn't expect an open market on things that they won't give us or democratic countries an open market on, which is a separate kind of discussion. It's like, well, if you let our tech companies operate in Europe, then we'll let you in ours. It's quid pro quo, real easy, pal. Which way do you want it? I mean, that's basic high school playground stuff. It's like pretty simple. But I think that the furor on TikTok and the privacy incursions, even though the CCP could push the algorithms toward divisive materials in divisive content in the US and, display engineers doing wonderful things and people getting awards in China and how to make stuff, they could do that, sure. But I don't think that's the driver behind the push for the ban. I think it's internal lobbying to protect revenue for social media companies in the US.
And it's not just you that thinks that. I'm doing a story on this on my Bullshit Filter show tomorrow. This is in the Washington Post a week ago. Facebook paid GOP firm to malign TikTok. The firm targeted victory pushed local operatives across the country to boost messages calling TikTok a threat to American children. Dream would be to get stories with headlines like "From Dancers to Danger," one campaign director said. Facebook parent company Meta is paying one of the biggest Republican consulting firms in the country to orchestrate a nationwide campaign seeking to turn the public against TikTok. So the quick version of the story, the TLDR version, is that TikTok's own analysis said in an internal report last year leaked by the whistleblower Frances Haugen, Facebook researchers said teens were spending 2 to 3 times more time on TikTok than Instagram, and that Facebook's popularity among young people had plummeted. So basically, Facebook hired, if you can't beat them, kill them, hired a PR firm to basically get the US government to either ban TikTok or force ByteDance, the Chinese owners of TikTok, to sell it to an American company. It's outrageous. That is a huge story that isn't getting anywhere near enough media coverage.
Oh, think about it. The people who are covering the media are the people that own the media. So it's in their incentive not to do it. This is where you get this weird circular reference. But Meta's strategy, I always call it the Meta BB. It's either buy them or ban them. They're the only two things that they do. They haven't had an innovation in 20 years. It's classic.
And that's an old Microsoft strategy too. And everyone, Telstra strategy. I often say this, I remember being in a sit-down roundtable with the senior execs at Telstra. This is in the late 90s, probably, when a bunch of particular guys were running it. And one of them was talking about the internet and talked about their strategy was to kill the baby in the crib. It was like, if it's literally the term he used, if there was a startup that looked like it could possibly be a threat to Telstra, the strategy was to kill it. before it got out there and could challenge their business model. I
Yeah.
was like, hold on, you guys are owned by the taxpayers. At the time they still were.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying your strategy, rather than innovate, is to kill any companies that are innovating so Australians can't get access to that innovation. Really? This is why we're paying you with our taxpayer dollars? Really?
Innovation's a lot like teenage sex. There's a lot of talk and not much of it actually happening.
And capitalism is bad for innovation. I've been arguing that.
Of course
for
it
a
is.
long, long time.
Well, capitalism, if it was real, it would be great for innovation, but we don't have
If Santa
capitalism.
was real, he'd bring me presents every Christmas too.
Right. Well, we've never had capitalism.
No.
Or
communism.
Yeah, right. We've never had either of them. We've got mixed models, really. It's just on this scale. And Peter Thiel says that the business that you want to have is a monopolistic one that can buy or kill someone else who could potentially do what you do. Right. I mean,
Warren Buffett says they're the best businesses to invest in too.
Of course they are. It's some sort
moat.
of disguised monopoly, let's call it, or really smallly controlled oligopolies where there's a few players who don't talk about pricing and margin, how they operate, but what they do is clear with unwritten rules of how to play that game. I mean, there's nothing clearer than that.
That is the Futurist podcast for this week, because I've got a 5-hour road trip ahead of me right now. I got to go. Thank you, Samo. Camo and Samo out. We'll be back
go
next time.
Blammo. You pick a better place to live. Well, the colors are swirled and the boys and girls can grow in peace and harmony. And when murals stand on walls so grand, as far as the eye are able to see, I never knew art till I saw your face, and there'd never be worth to take your place. Because each and every time you take a spray paint can, Michelangelo soul controls your hands in serenades of blue and red, and the beauty of the rainbow fills your head. Crescendo colors play in tune, man. I don't know why they have to die so soon. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. When the good die young, as all die must, as our life must live, death must die, and the tears shall fall from the living eye. The tears just fall from the state of mind of the beautiful lady that you left behind in a love and alone, but now you're dead and she still can't get you out of your head. I mean, I could keep going, but it goes for 12 minutes.
Do you do that for your sound check whenever you get on stage?
Mainly not, but maybe it's time to start.
I used to do the message as my sound check. Yeah.
How does the message start again? What's the first word? The message. Because once you get the first word, your brain clicks into gear and it knows what's next, which is a lot like large language models. Now I say that rap is the OG large language model, rapping. Just what rhymes and what comes next, probability functions and memory with no real thinking.
Broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the stage. They just don't care.
I can't
take the smell. I can't take the noise. Got the money to move out. I guess I got no choice. Rats in the front room, roaches in the back, junk is in the alley with the baseball bat.
I try to get
away, but I couldn't get far because a man with a tow truck repossessed my car.
100.
Oh, there's your phone.
And now it's off.
Well, there you go, Dennis. Save that for the edit. Put that in at the end. Cut all that, Dennis. Stick it in at the end of the episode, and go to a bit of the outro music, and then just fade that in over the top. It's like an Easter egg for people that
that know what Easter eggs are and look for them.
That know what Easter eggs are.
And we're 4 days out.
People our age that know what a real Easter egg is. All right, you ready to go, pal?
Yeah, I'm really into this.
I'm going to Bundy today, so I need to get out of this pretty quickly. Let's try and keep it to an hour if we can.
Yeah, we can. We definitely can. Let's keep it tight.